At Indie Booksource, you can shop by genre or by author, and you will be buying direct from the author's main purchase link. We offer hundreds of titles in formats that include ebooks, paperback, hardbound, and audiobook. Support an indie author. Visit indiebooksource.com today.
Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi there, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. We're really glad that you're here, whether you're watching this pre-recorded show, and yes, this is a pre-recorded show. I'll repeat it later in the show in case people join us later on. Or if you're listening to the podcast, we're really happy that you chose to listen to Meet the Author podcast. We have a really great author today that I'm sure you will be happy to meet, and you want to buy all his books.
That's right. And you want to be sure to, we want to remind everybody that's watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, even if you can't see other comments, go ahead and comment, and we'll catch up with you on the comments later.
Yeah.
But feel free to do that.
Yeah, we need to remind you that if you're not in the same room as they are, like if you're not in Meet the Author podcast YouTube and you're in LinkedIn, you're not going to see what the people in Meet the Author podcast are doing. Think of them as like chat rooms. Different chat rooms, or am I dating myself too much? But
LinkedIn doesn't even show you the comments, other people's comments ever. So even if you're in the same LinkedIn one, you're not going to see the other people's comments. So.
But we can see it, and we'll put your comments up on the screen. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Meet the Author podcast, like, and make comments.
And even though this is a pre-recorded episode, this is a live book giveaway. So when the book giveaway comes up at after the commercials, go ahead and enter that book giveaway if you're watching this this live.
Start typing really fast once we say you can.
There you go. So I guess without much further ado, we should bring in
our guest,
none other than author A.G.FLITCHER.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Hi, welcome to the show. We're glad that you're here.
Happy to be here.
Good. So you write under the pen name of A.G.FLITCHER, but your actual name is Andre Gress, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
You want to tell people a little bit about yourself, where you live, how you got started writing, that sort of thing?
Sure.
We'll tell them about your job too.
Yeah.
Okay, so my day job, or at least the one that makes most of my income, is maintenance and trade worker at the Greater Vancouver Zoo in BC, Canada.
Isn't that incredible, you guys? I mean, come on.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, we're not just maintaining things, we're also creating new things too. So let's say we get a new animal after a previous animal occupied a certain space. We would actually start revamping that enclosure. So, for example, we used to have baboons, and then snow leopards took over their enclosure. So, because they're such good climbers, we actually had to remove the top 5 feet of chain link and put a custom-made steel slip pad, so that if they ever attempt to try and get out, they'll just slip and fall. And then on top of that, we redid all of the hot wire. We have like 4 levels of them to make sure that any attempt they make, they won't get that high. We even had to add hot wire webbing on all the corners so that if they try to reach the public, they won't be able to.
Good.
That's good. That's reassuring.
Yeah. So that project took a long time, and it was a very muddy job too, because in BC, it rains all the time. So especially during like late winter, spring, we couldn't bring any like backhoe or any heavy machinery in there. So everything had to be done either by hand, or we put a bunch of plywood everywhere so that we can reach as far as possible. And so as I've been working there, I've been gaining all these skills I never thought I'd have. Carpentry, plumbing, painting, building fences, building shelters, insulation, all this handiwork that I had never lifted up even a hammer before starting this job. So my dad was very happy that I stuck with it and continued to build my skills for the future when I have my own home. I live in Aldergrove, which is more like the gullies or the countryside of BC. We're basically the middleman of city versus countryside. So we're not a big population. I think we're around 20,000 people. As for how I got my writing started,
yeah,
that's a bit of a mixed bag because I started as a screenwriter in 2014. And when I saw how competitive it was, I just kind of lost motivation. So I let that be on the back burner. Then I became a personal trainer for a year. And even though fitness was a passion of mine, it wasn't a big enough passion for me to be a salesman in terms of, promoting myself as a fitness trainer. And that's the big part of being a personal trainer. You have to always be selling yourself because that's the only way you make money. Otherwise, you're just some guy at a gym cleaning all of the equipment. And then I tried or started to write a children's book with a friend of mine. But because we had different approaches to not just the art process, but also the marketing process, and I didn't really know what I was talking about, I was like, you know what? I'd rather let this go, get myself properly educated, and then just do everything on my own, and then come back to doing group projects. So I did an associate's degree in creative writing and then transformed that into a bachelor's in creative writing, in which I took 4 classes in poetry. So that's another area of writing that I do besides novels. And I did do research articles for a little while, but because I have more of a fiction brain, I I don't like dry writing. I couldn't do it for, I think I did it for like 8 months, and I was like, you know what, this is too dry for me. I can't do just facts. So as for like where my writing comes from in terms of inspiration, is really just life. It's, I'm not a nonfiction writer. I don't write memoirs. I love to just create basically parallels of my experiences. So in book 1 of Boone and Jacques, my urban fantasy series, which won the Literary Titan Gold Award, I drew a lot of experience from my life. But because I had started to free myself creatively in terms of not being paranoid about what I'm writing and what's my time frame and what should I write about, I just kind of just wrote it. So yeah, I think that kind of sums it up.
Alrighty, so here's your first book. You just mentioned it, Boone and Jacques.
We don't have the updated one with the award on it, but
no,
that's just a sticker.
Yeah, stickers.
All right, so you want to give us a little synopsis of that book without giving anything away?
Sure. So Boone and Jacques is essentially 2 nosy kids that went a little too deep into the magical history of their town, Saddleton. So essentially what happens is at the beginning, they discover this underground bunker in Boone's backyard. And they see all this strange writing around them, and they have no idea what it means or what it could lead to. And as they dig deeper and deeper, these old nemesis and people that were involved in the previous part of the town start resurfacing, and it just kind of spirals from there with magical beings that kind of rested below ground and in these different dimensions and stuff. And because they're children, around 10, I think, the adults don't take them seriously. Kind of like a series of unfortunate events. That's kind of where I drew the inspiration in terms of having to rely on your own wit, where adults just don't care, at least in this universe, where they're also self-involved and they're trying to just go after their own desires and disregarding what the kids want. So that's basically the first book. And second book, the only thing I'll tell the listeners here is that they're not in town anymore.
Okay, so this is the second one, right? Boone and Jacques, the Brothers Odyssey. So
Yes.
Are Boone and Jacques brothers?
They appear that way, but no. The brothers part of the title is in reference to two magical kings that are fighting each other, and Boone and Jacques seeing each other as brothers, but they're actually just best friends.
Okay, that sounds good. And then you want to talk about your third one also?
Third one, they go back into town, and as you can tell by the cover, it's not the same style as the artist who did the first two. Mm-hmm. This cover was done by James Lillick.
Okay.
And the first two were done by Bristol Middleton. Okay. But as for the storyline that I can vaguely tell you in Saddleton Haunting, essentially, it's kind of like a new chapter of history kind of being repeated from the first one, where power is still within people's interest in terms of like the inner circle of rich people. And Boone, Jacques, and Shammy, who was in the first book, so I can say that. The three of them are all separated, but I'm not going to tell you where they are. And they have to kind of find each other again and resolve all of the greed and power and chaos that has resurfaced again in Saddleton.
All right. So for those people that are listening to the podcast and not watching, the live broadcast, why don't you describe Boone and Jacques Saddleton's Secret, what the cover looks like, and then you can tell us the name of the artist who did that for you.
Sure. So in the cover for book one, there is a wolf head in the upper left corner, which is a representation of King Reeve, one of his physical transformations. And then there's more of a feverish dream kind of emerald background. And then title at the top, subtitle secondary, and then my name underneath it, right in the middle of the book. And then at the bottom of the book, or second half, there is Boone, who's eating a chocolate bar. And Jacques, who's wearing a chocolate peacoat and holding a notebook with a pen.
Not actually made of chocolate, though.
No.
Chocolate colored.
The other one is eating the chocolate bar, but the other one...
he's not going to eat his own shirt.
No, that's good.
Yum. Tastes like leather. The funny thing is that this artist, Bristol Middleton, she's more of a concept artist, but because I really trusted her and her style, I gave her a shot. This was her second cover that she did for me, actually. I actually have two previous books that no one knows about because it's under my legal name, Andre Gress. So I'll mention that in a second, but just to clarify for the image here, if you're listening, Jacques' coat is actually just an accent that the artist added. So he doesn't actually wear that kind of stuff in book one, because in book one, I focus on their childhood. Jacques wears more like clothes from a clothing bank, even though he is fostered by a rich British family. So when you look at this cover, it looks like, he's well put together, rather sophisticated. But that was just to accent his intellectual persona and very studious mentality. As for Boone, for his wardrobe, I really made sure that he had holes in his shirt, because even though he is a middle-class citizen in a middle-class family, they live as if they're lower class. So he gets like one or two shirts a year. And it's kind of like a Christmas gift thing where he gets one form of clothing every Christmas.
Wow, you go into a lot of detail about their lives and who they. Yeah, that's really good.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the second one is this one.
That's a very messy one to describe, but I can do it. Okay, so this is basically a mishmash of images that you see throughout the book. So at the top, you see all these lightning bolts surrounding a tsunami right above a wolf head. The lightning bolts and tsunami are a reference to what happens later in the book. So if you want to know what that is, you'll have to read it. As for what's coming out of the wolf's mouth, this is not a wolf. This is a dark king that was cursed by his father. And one of the parts of his nightmarish look is that he has 6 tongues. And that's what the whole mess you see there.
Gotcha.
Those you see these sort of, looks like a peacock pattern around the tongues. Right. That's essentially these images that Boone and Jacques and Shammy see in certain locations of the landscape that they're in. So there's a lot of vivid imagery that when I got the award here, okay,
yep,
they said that it was even more evolved in terms of imagery. So that's why I really implore you to read along as best you can, because my writing tends to be very detail oriented and fast paced. Not that I don't give any breathing room. It's more that because of my screenwriting background, I tend to be very action driven with the layer of emotion. And then at the bottom of the cover is just the writing, the title, subtitle, and then my name at the very bottom.
So just to repeat, this is it's Boone and Jacques, the Brothers Odyssey. So yeah, you know what we just described.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. And then one last one. And this is from a different artist now.
Yes. The artist's name is James Lillick. That's the first American artist I worked with.
Okay.
And so this was a hard choice in terms of what I wanted to present on the front cover. So for the front cover, it's a very different, not just energy, but the placement as well. So for the placement, we have title, subtitle at the top, and then my name at the bottom, with a galactic background. And this is kind of hard to see, but it's actually a zombified version of the wolf. So you can probably kind of see the fangs there. And then there's this emerald spirit glowing through his chest. That is essentially foreshadowing what could be happening to this creature here, with this amberish color that's making it look like he's about to decay.
Okay, so that's Boone and Jacques Saddleton Haunting that you just described. So there we go.
So do you have another one coming up that you're working on?
Yeah, I'm doing 2 more books for Boone and Jacques.
Ooh, 2 more. Do you know when you're...
I'm going to clock in at 70,000 words today for book 4.
Oh, won't be long.
No, I'm aiming for 80,000 for the first draft, and then fattening it up to maybe 85, 90. Because I saw like I said, I'm very detail oriented. So the first draft is always just idea, some detail, and then expand later. Because people always ask me, how do I write so fast? Because I write 4,000 words a week while working a full-time job. They're like, you don't slow down? I'm like, well, the thing about writing your first draft is not thinking. It's just writing whatever comes to mind, and then you can fix it later. If you focus so much on the execution of what you're doing, that's what creates it's a myth, but writer's block. People think that writer's block is a real thing. It's not. It's just something we put in our heads to block the idea of anxiety or anticipation for what we're writing. So Yeah. I was gonna do a book 6, but when I was thinking of book 5 and how close I am to closing the character arcs, I thought book 5 was sufficient enough with an addition of what happened in the aftermath of the main story, so that I can close it properly without exhausting myself and stretching it too thin. That's why I didn't want to do book 6. I don't like stretching stories thin when it's unnecessary. Um, so once that series is done, I have like 10 books, 10 standalone books that I've already started planning on writing.
Wow.
So,
cool.
So do you follow the hero's journey?
Yes, when I studied that during university, I didn't know about that, obviously, before I was educating myself. But in terms of like following it step by step, I try not to. I like to mix it up because when I write, I don't do this anymore, actually. Before, I used to have all of these little pieces of paper with push pins on it on a bulletin board behind me and follow uh, my storyline. But what I realize is that that boxes me into one storyline that I've written by hand, where I could just write the storyline that I want first, then put it up behind me, and then start shifting things around if need be.
Okay, so let me ask you this, and it sounded to me like when you were speaking that you did follow
Mm-hmm.
the hero's journey. That's how it seemed that you were writing.
Yeah.
So do you have you heard the expression a pantser or a plantser?
No.
Okay, so the pantser is the person who flies by the seat of their pants as they're writing. They're writing and they let the story or the
Mm-hmm.
characters take them where the story and the characters want to go. And the plantser is, of course, a person who follows an outline,
Strict outline, yeah.
a strict
Mm-hmm.
outline. And then there are some people who also have to know the ending before they can write the beginning and the middle. So just to give you an idea of how different authors operate, where do you think you fall in all of that?
Probably the pantser, like you said, just kind of on the fly.
Yeah.
I mean, I do get to a point where if I'm close to the end, I kind of know where it's leading to,
Yes. Yeah.
but I don't like spoiling it for myself.
Right. And also, we have a friend, an author, a very prolific author, who's Caleb Pirtle. And he actually said something that helped me with writer's block when I get stuck and I can't move forward. And he said that what I was trying to do was make the characters do something they really wouldn't want to do. And that was right.
That makes sense.
That made sense to me, and it was right. I was trying to make the character do something that the character didn't want to do, which, as an author, you understand what I mean by where the characters want to go and where the story wants to go is not necessarily where you were thinking it was going to go if you're a pantser, because it's going to flow, it's going to change. So
yeah, because like especially if you're writing something like a fantasy or a mystery novel, planning it out, it's okay for like knowing like plot points. But if you're like, this person is the murderer, it's like, well, now I know. then I have to make it about them. Like in book 4 that I'm working on, it is revolved around a murder mystery. But the murder mysteries that I've read like by Agatha Christie, I realized that because there's always like everyone's involved kind of thing, it's kind of like the formula is easy to see. So what I did for book 4 is that although it is the focal point of the story, it doesn't take up actually much space. Like there is a lot of mystery and I kind of have everyone involved, but because Boone and Shaq are the focus, I let this focus be kind of in the background, which is very to some authors counterintuitive, because it's like, well, that's the whole point. Why are you stepping away from that? It's like, well, everyone has read a mystery novel, so why not include other things around it to make it seem like a bigger scale as opposed to just this murder? So I've been writing this book since November. Yeah. I mean, it was very slow going at first. I was really like nervous about what book 4 is going to be, because book 3, even though I did tease a bit book 4 at the end, there was no telling what book 4 was going to be and how big it was going to be, and if I even had enough material. But once I started, going through things and really asking myself, what does this book mean to me? What does this mean for Boone and Jacques in terms of their character development? Is there anywhere for them to grow? I started asking all these questions, because that's always the big worry for a writer is, should I write another book on this series? Because maybe there's nowhere for them to go.
Right.
But
Right.
when I started to get deeper into the story and started asking myself questions about the characters, it was much easier to write. Because when you free yourself from the anxiety of what else is there to say, it becomes much easier, because then you can answer your own questions.
And I have one more question before commercials. Okay. And so you had told us at the beginning of the interview that, you had various jobs before you started writing novels, and, things that you weren't satisfied in. It wasn't your passion. So what I wanted to know is, have you found your passion? Is writing your passion? Is this it for you?
Oh, for sure. When I was put as a finalist for the Ozma Award done by Chanticleer Reviews, I was surprised, because I submitted my entire series in September, didn't hear anything until like this month. And they said, congratulations, you're a finalist for a fantasy series. I'm like, what? And we're only 2 people that are in the finals. So it was not just surprised, but very motivated to keep going, because that's why my motivation was up and down, because my books were collecting dust for like 2 years. And then all of this, exposure and these awards coming in reignited that flame. So that's why my passion for writing has continued to grow every year, really.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good.
Cool. Well, I think it's time that we need to break for
a word from
our sponsor. That sounds so weird, doesn't it? Okay. 2 sponsors, but there are sponsors. So Here we go. When we come back, we will have the book giveaway and talk some more with Andre. Okay, so everyone sit tight.
Screen.
Many secrets are hidden within the darkness of the jungle. Behold, this one about a man, a woman, a black jaguar, and an ancient Maya legend. 2 Faces of the Jaguar is a novel by George Dismukes that will take you deep into the jungle and capture your imagination until the last word. 2 Faces of the Jaguar is book 1 of a trilogy. 2 Faces of the Jaguar, where only the adventurous dare to read.
2 Faces of the Jaguar, The Lost City, and The Jaguar's Quest are available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. 2 Faces of the Jaguar, the book people are talking about. Get your copy today.
People Who Like to Read Want to Get Their Hands on Books by Becca Jones.
Becca Jones, the breakthrough author who tells it like it is. It takes courage to tell a story when it reveals dark secrets. Becca Jones delves deep into the hidden world of sexual abuse. She tells what happened and also tells how she survived.
Meant to Be is much more than just entertaining. Meant to Be gives you a point of reference. hope to cling to, and becomes a guide for survival if you have suffered the same thing. Meant to Be, Becca Jones, a must-have.
Meant to Be is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites.
Dear Lord, she's still alive.
Who's still alive?
Maris, that's who.
Come on, Angie, that's impossible.
Impossible or not, she's still alive, I tell you. She killed that boatload of people, and she's just getting started. There's no limit to what she will do.
It's not easy to kill a siren. It takes a formula and a plan. Siren Song 2 is the spellbinding sequel to Siren Song. Both novels by George Dismukes.
Siren Song 2 will be on bookshelves and bookseller websites in July. Don't miss it.
And we're back.
Hooray.
Hey, time for our book giveaway, everybody. Get your typing fingers ready, and we're going to go ahead and start that. And the first 3 people to email gressandre0@gmail.com will win an ebook copy of Saddleton's Secret. I'll put this up too. There we go. That's to help you see that email better.
Yep. Once again, that's gressandre0@gmail.com. All right. Get typing, people.
Do you want to confirm the other ones? Or
Yes. We'll go through all.
Here's where you can reach him.
All of the places that you can reach Andre. On Facebook, you can find him at A.G.FLITCHER, and that's A.G.FLITCHER. On Twitter, you can find him at A.G.FLITCHER. On YouTube, you can reach him at A.G.FLITCHER, and be sure to subscribe, to like, and to comment when you visit, okay? We're going to have to do that right after this show.
That's right.
We're excited to see. You can find him on Instagram at A.G.FLITCHER. See, Andre's made this so
very easy for everybody to find him. So go ahead and get on there and follow him, everybody.
Yeah.
Consistency is key, right?
You know, it's very important, actually. Yeah. It really is. So you can lose people by not being consistent. So that's very, very
and we're
good
not
thing
consistent.
To do. And we're not consistent, so I'm sure we've
do
lost
as
a lot
we
of people.
say, not as we do.
I'd like to go back and recreate them all, but already there's too many there to change. So.
Yeah, we're on YouTube as Meet the Author Podcast. We have 2 websites, Indie Booksource and CarterNovels.com.
I used to have a podcast, actually.
Oh, did you really?
What
is
your podcast about?
Well, the name is Awkward Howler Podcast. Honestly I stopped because I didn't have the money to do this the premium package of SoundCloud, where you can just have unlimited time for your podcast. So I just did the 3 hours, and then whenever a certain episode didn't get enough attention, I just scrapped it and did a new one. So but that was a long time ago. I used to talk about movies. I talked about the show How I Met Your Mother, and my
it was a while back.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. So it was just something I tried for fun, just to see how it went. I might do it again someday once I organize myself a little better, because I like to talk. I like to tell stories. And once I started doing that, the series I told you about, Stories with A.G.FLITCHER, I saw the potential for eventually turning that into a podcast.
For those where we can find that, Stories with A.G. FLITCHER.
So Stories with A.G. FLITCHER you can find on YouTube at A.G.FLITCHER. I started doing that this year after a 1 hour free session I did with Melody Owen, who's the, I guess, president of Author Nation in BC. She was the first person to interview me when I was becoming an author. And once she started doing this show, she started offering services. And so I asked her, what can I do to promote myself? And she said, you should talk about stories behind your writing. So I was obviously, actually, I wasn't that awkward. I thought I was awkward, but I'm not that awkward on camera because I did take 2 months of acting classes. So I learned how to ground myself and then just be relaxed and just say what I have to say. So the first story I did that I can tell your listeners is the passing of my mother.
Oh,
yeah, that happened.
Sorry to hear that.
It's okay. Life is growing around the scar, so I'm okay now. It's been 7 years, and that was probably the toughest year, not just because of her, but because there was this domino effect. I had 3 funerals in 6 months to go to.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah. So it was her in February 23rd. That's when she passed away. And I had 2 days off work and then 1 day off for the funeral. Because unlike my father, I'm a very open and emotional person in terms of transparency. So it was important to me that I grieve in a healthy way. Where him and my sister, they had busied themselves. I couldn't do that. I was like, I'm going to explode if I do that. So I really made sure that not only did I do a lot of self-reflection, but talk to people and make different choices. And then when I go see my mom, I talk to her, and because talking and expressing your pain is really important, especially at the beginning. When I was working at the Olive Garden, there was this manager that told me that when her father passed away, she didn't deal with it, and it messed her up years later. So I didn't want that to happen to me, regardless of what my family thinks of me. I don't care if they think that I'm a, very emotional person. I love who I am. So anyway, I think the video was like close to 20 minutes when I talked about that, because the day that she passed away was a whirlwind to me, because first off, I had a 1.5 hour shift, the shortest one I've ever did. So because she was in the hospital for 2 months, it was routine for us to see her every day. So my sister texted me very scrambly, a lot of spelling mistakes. She's like, get here now. So I get to the hospital. I see family friends in the lobby. And they all looked very broken. I didn't really understand why, because no one told me anything yet. And so I took the elevator, went up the 3rd floor, opened the door to the patient room, and my dad says that she passed away. And it was the first time that I saw my dad cry. He had always been a very stoic and very reserved person. I got used to it, obviously, but I won't say any more because I say all of that in the video. So I would very much like for people to watch it. And actually today, because it's in the same year, I talked about my grandma's passing. Because when my mother passed away, we wanted to see her family in Cairo, Egypt, which is where most of her relatives are, in the heat of the moment. So I think 4 months after, usually we go around summertime, we went to go visit her family. So within the first morning of our visit, we went to go see our grandma, and she was 94 at the time. And because of her Greek heritage, when she was close to the end of her life, she actually started calling for her mother in Greek, which was insane to our family because she hadn't spoken Greek in years, decades actually. So I mentioned the whole story of how that went, and I actually got a lot of it wrong because my memory was fuzzy. So I wrote in the description the corrections that my dad told me about, because I told him about the video, and he was actually pretty excited for me because he likes that story too. So he told me about the things that I got wrong, and I was okay with it. That's one thing I learned to do in life, is be okay with being wrong. And then I think towards September, my sister's godmother's husband passed away. That was less of a sting for me because I didn't really have a close relationship with him. I mean, we went to the same church for Catholicism, and we did have visits with him throughout the years in our youth. But in terms of my personal relationship, it was always kind of distant with him. So, but yeah, it was a real topsy-turvy year.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like it.
That does sound like it. So I'm really sorry. That was a tough year.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
A lot of life lessons.
Yeah, I mean, our family is very close because of that kind of stuff, but also
because you're Greek.
Yeah. But also because of physical injuries. My father, when I was 8, was T-boned by a garbage truck.
Ouch.
So, yeah, they were both trying to turn into a T-road, and because he had a small truck, it got crammed underneath the side of the truck.
Oh boy.
So, because he slammed on his brakes really hard and it was such a high impact, he actually had to get an ab muscle graft onto his foot because his foot got stuck in the brake pedal.
Oh boy.
So he had that, and then a steel plate in his other shin, and an artificial hip.
Yeah.
So he can still walk. He can still walk. He actually made that choice of either hip fusion or artificial hip. So he's like, well, I'd rather just not run. I can walk to work. So my sister had the most injuries from all of us because she was a figure skater. So she fell a lot. I actually going to be writing a story based on my experiences with her, a brother-sister story in the future, because I had to take care of her for a little while when she had 2 back surgeries and 1 knee surgery. So when she had her back surgeries, it was due to falling on her tailbone too much and started compressing her spine and everything.
Oh boy, yeah.
Yeah. So there were nights where I had to wash her hair, help her get into bed. She was supposed to take care of the neighbor's dog, but she couldn't, so I did that for her for 3 weeks. I also helped her with her knee surgery by helping her, kind of dress herself and kind of things. So that's what really bonded us, is me taking care of her. I used to do martial arts. So my karate instructor, when I told him that, he said, "You're a really good brother. I would have left her to her own devices." I'm like, "Why?" There's no one else for her to take care of her. So
yeah, doesn't sound right. Oh boy.
Maybe you needed a different karate instructor, a different say.
So you're wearing a couple of pins there. Can you tell us about your pins that you're wearing?
So that one is my autism awareness one. I wanted to get one that was unique. Yeah, I don't know how. Let me see how close I can. Okay, there we go. So it kind of looks like the Batman or the Superman emblem.
Yes, it does.
With the A in the middle.
Yes.
Okay. And then, heart is upside down. Okay. That one is my LGBTQ plus support pin.
Good.
Because what is revealed later, actually, in the Boone and Jacques series, it's not really a spoiler, it's just part of who he is. Jacques is pansexual.
Okay.
And that was my first time attempting to expand sexuality in books. Very controversial for my dad, actually, because he and I don't really talk about that stuff. I tried to a couple times, but I'm like, no, you're too close-minded for me to talk to. So I just let that go.
Is he Orthodox Catholic or? Roman Catholic?
He's Roman Catholic. I mean, when he was in Egypt, he did attend an Orthodox Catholic church.
Yeah.
It's not that he's prejudiced or anything towards LGBTQ. It's just not something he understands.
Right.
And that's why I don't really judge him for it and don't really talk about it with him, because when someone doesn't understand something and they're set on it, there's no reason to discuss with them.
Right.
Until they ask you questions, and then you can explain what asexual is, what pansexual is.
I mean, there are some things I'm still learning about that community. Like I'm still learning about being non-binary and all that stuff. Like, because that to me is relatively new in terms of how one sees oneself.
Yeah.
So I don't think that I would include that in my work, but in book 4, I did start including even more characters from that community. So, for example, I have a transgender male person, and Jacques is seeing someone that is a transgendered woman and of color too. She is half Puerto Rican, half I think Mexican or something. Basically, she has a caramel skin complexion. So, yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
And I am quite sure that the LGBTQ community will be very happy to read your books.
Yeah, no kidding. Right?
And to be included in your books.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, when I was thinking about Jacques being a foster kid, I was like, let me kind of add layers to this, because that's not enough. I mean, everyone's heard of foster children, but no one's ever heard of a foster child that is pansexual or doesn't realize what his sexuality is until later. And even Shammy, who is Boone's love interest, sort of, in book 1, it's like you can see it developing. It's not really there yet. That's not really spoiling anything, because it's very obvious from the beginning. But anyway, when she reaches her teen years, she realizes that she's bisexual. But I don't really show that side of her, really, in terms of, well, I mean, like this much. Because I didn't want her her entire character arc to overshadow Boone and Jacques. I wanted to show enough that she has value in the story and that she is part of Boone in terms of his character arc and the whole two souls make one kind of thing.
Interesting. That's really good.
Right?
Yeah. I think so. I like it. I like inclusion. Inclusion of
everybody. Yeah. Everybody counts. Everybody's.
And actually, one small addition here. I'm not going to say who. It is a character that already exists in the series. But in book 4, there is a nonverbal autistic person.
Very good.
Cool.
I talked to the same parent that has children with autism and to further understand this part of the spectrum. And she said that although they do use sign language, it's only for function, meaning they're not really sophisticated in ASL. So I made sure that when I do revision, that I won't make it so fluid that it'll just be like help. Like that's what the parent was saying, is that it's basically when they need help for something or a basic need that they want. Because the thing about
they're hungry, they're tired, they're thirsty. Yeah.
But she did say something that was very interesting to me about being nonverbal, is that they actually choose not to talk, meaning they don't practice speech. So although there is therapy and all these devices at their disposal to use to be able to speak, that they choose not to, because they'd rather only get their way through their own limitations.
Right.
It's easier to receive help when you're limited, because people feel like they have to help you as much as possible, right?
Right. Yep.
So
we're having a little bit of transmission problem here, it looks like.
Not much.
Not much. We're still hearing everything, and every once in a while you freeze up a little bit. Is there any words of wisdom you would want to share with the audience as far as like if they're trying to get started writing books?
Be patient, really.
Yeah, that's
because
the running theme.
well, I mean, the thing about being a writer, especially now, is that unlike someone like Stephen King, in his time, you would just submit a manuscript to publishers, and it's a yes or no, and then over time you start working on your marketing. Where now, and I learned this in university actually, the media part of promoting yourself is so fragmented and broken that it is nearly impossible to start right away with a big audience. Basically, you're by yourself for a number of years trying to not just find your target audience and who you are as a writer, but also how do you get yourself out there. Like, I've been promoting this series since 2019, and it did not get any attention at all for 2 years. It was basically collecting dust. But because I saw the potential in this and people telling me the potential of the series, I just kept going. So that's why it's important to understand that you won't know when you'll succeed. And even if you start selling books, how much you'll be making consistently.
Right.
My business of writing teacher used to tell us that you have to be accepting of the fact that you might not make any money. You might just be doing it as a side thing.
That's right.
And that's why I really stopped talking about this with my dad, because he's always like, but Andre, you're spending thousands of dollars with your editors and blah, 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 but you're not making anything back. I'm like, I don't care about the money. I care about the craft and the passion and what I get to say and what I'm learning through life, through my own books, and how I can pass that on to my readers.
That's right. Yeah. And that's why you write. You write because you have to write.
Right.
And nobody should go into this thinking they're going to make a lot of money.
You'd be very disappointed.
That they're going to be the next Stephen King, because things are different now. And unless you're a celebrity and you have a story to tell, you are not going to get. You're not going to get.
That's right.
But it shouldn't discourage anyone.
Absolutely not. You should write because you want to write, and you want to entertain people.
And in the meantime, network as much as you can with other people, other authors, and get out there. Keep your name out there and keep your books out there on a regular basis.
My business of writing teacher used to tell us a story of the author who wrote The Martian. When he first started writing that book, it was just on a blog site where he would just write it chapter by chapter, and his fans would be these like actual astronomers or scientists that would correct his terminology and how he wrote his scenes in terms of being on a different planet and how things should work or not work. And so he would actually take that feedback, rewrite it, and then they would be happy with it. And then they started saying, well, can you put it into one file, like an e-file or something? So he does that. And then like, well, put it on Amazon. It's easier for me to read on my Kindle. So he sold it for like $1 on Amazon. And then it just kind of blew up from there because he had already built over like 7 years of work.
Base.
Yeah. And then by chance, a film director saw his book and said, I want to make your book a movie. So it's really about being in the right place at the right time.
Definitely.
But he also had mentors that set him down the right road.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's really awesome that they were interested in.
This teacher, he's rightfully a hippie, meaning he had a very open space that he liked to talk about. So when he was explaining this journey that you go through, he actually had us make this huge like powwow circle and move the tables to the side. And he took this ball of yarn and started making this spiral in the classroom.
Yeah.
And saying, this is your journey. You'll have a lot of dark years here. Then as your pace, like in terms of attention you get, gets longer, that's where your attention starts to grow. So it starts in this very like dark space that no one sees but you. Meaning, like when I first wrote Unforgiven 1 and 2, which was my first 2 books, no one knew about those books. I didn't expect them to, because I was a nobody. And I was okay with that because it was fun to write and I didn't care if I made money or not. But once I started gaining life experience and started understanding humanity more and myself more, it became more interesting to write, because there's all these different changes in life and mistakes you make and good things you do, and learning different perspectives from different experiences. And you just like, writing should not be seen as a job. It should be seen as this catalyst that you used for yourself. That's why I don't really like reading too much high fantasy. It feels extremely convoluted, and the humanity part tends to be lost in there, and all the imagination. So like, I started reading Dune and actually got bored because I was like, I don't really care for these characters. So it's I mean, of course everyone has their own taste, but
definitely.
Sure.
But I'm laughing because I read Dune and I did not like it. Our son-in-law read Dune and absolutely loved it. I think our son loves the book, but I was like, not for me. But not every book is going to be for everybody, you know.
Sure.
Nor should it be, because we're all individuals, and
that's like when people like overhype a movie and then you're like, I don't want to see it. Like, what is so good?
Right?
Yeah, you don't want to be disappointed, because then when you go and you're expecting this and you get this, you're like, don't tell me about it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
so I will say we've seen some great movies recently.
Yeah, we have. Andre,
one of
you for go ahead.
I was just gonna say, one of my dreams in the future as a milestone is to be on a talk show like Jimmy Fallon or Stephen Colbert or something like that. That has, I actually have that as a pinned tweet on Twitter, in the hopes that maybe they see it.
Well, you're almost there right now.
Put it on your vision board.
Yeah, put it on your vision board for sure.
You were in our show.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Anyway, we want to thank you for being our guest. You've been very, very interesting, and you're very well spoken. We appreciate it. Appreciate you giving your time.
Thank you.
And everybody, you know where to find him. Look him up.
That's right.
Get a free ebook. See what he's all about.
That's right. What we're going to do is we're going to move you over to the side. Stay there. The outro is going to play and everything. And when
we'll meet you backstage. After the show is over.
So just hang in there where you're at, and we'll see you in a minute here. And boy, that was really good.
Well, it was so interesting, and I got so lost in everything that he said that I forgot what I was going to talk about at the end of the show.
Oh my goodness. Well, do you think?
Sorry, folks.
Do you need a minute?
No. Go ahead.
Okay. Want to talk about episode rewind coming up this next Saturday after this show airs. It'll be Catherine Kerrigan and Lorian Brooks on episode 20 from last year. That's at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, right here in the same place that you're watching this. And next Wednesday, live, we'll have episode 54, live from the UK. Techno thriller author, Tom Bowles.
And God bless him. He's actually going to talk to us live from the UK.
It's like midnight there. So he really wanted to be on live, so I hope everybody will show up.
Tune in.
And see him. He's got a couple of really cool books, it looks like. And he is part of Indie Book Source as well. So did you remember what you wanted to say?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
Well, maybe we can catch it next week then.
If it's
write
still
it down.
relevant.
If we remember to write it down. Then.
Yeah.
So I guess until next time.
That's all, folks.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DB.com.
You've been listening to WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.